Tonight, I'm opening files related to 5 strange, almost counterintuitive habits I adopted. Habits that, on the surface, seemed too weird to make a difference, but ended up doubling my productivity, and yes, even my income. These accounts are not theory, not guesses. They are lived experiences, documented, raw, and practical. What you're about to hear is a walkthrough of the exact steps I took, the struggles I faced, and the lessons I learned. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to Profit with A and hit the notification bell. Because what we uncover here might just be the blueprint for your own hustle, and you won't want to miss the files we open next. File Profit 501, Writing My To-Do List at Night, Backwards. It was early 2020. I was still working my 9 to 5, and most nights I'd stumble into bed exhausted, already dreading tomorrow's chaos. My mornings were frantic. I'd wake up, grab my phone, and scroll emails before brushing my teeth. My to-do list was always reactive, never intentional. That was when I stumbled onto a strange practice, writing my to-do list the night before, but backwards. Instead of jotting down what I thought I needed to do, I started from the end. I asked myself, if I went to bed tomorrow night and felt productive, what 3 things must have happened? Then, I wrote those 3 outcomes first. Only afterward did I map the steps needed to reach them. At first, it felt ridiculous. I'd sit there at midnight with a notebook, forcing myself to imagine future me being proud. Some nights I had nothing. Other nights, I wrote vague goals like, be productive, which didn't help. I almost gave up after a week. But slowly, I noticed something. I woke up with a blueprint. My mornings stopped being reactive. I wasn't fighting fires, I was following a map. The first time it clicked was a Tuesday in February. I had written, by bedtime, I want my freelance article submitted, my workout done, and my inbox cleared. By 9 p.m., I had all 3 checked off. It wasn't magic. But it was the first day in months I went to bed feeling ahead, not behind. That single change, starting the list at night, and starting from the end result, made every morning feel lighter. My productivity doubled because I was finally steering the ship instead of drifting. At Profit with A, we classify this as a directional habit. The weirdness isn't in the act of writing, it's in flipping the script so your outcomes decide your tasks, not the other way around. But even with a map in hand, there was another problem: my brain was cluttered. I was working with mental tabs open 24/7. And that's when I stumbled into my second strange habit. File Profit 502, Brain Dumping in Ugly Notebooks. Summer 2020. My desk looked neat on the outside, but inside my head was a mess. I carried half-finished ideas everywhere: video concepts, side hustle tweaks, errands. At night, my thoughts raced. I couldn't sleep. Then I remembered something I'd seen once: if you don't trust your brain, give it somewhere else to live. I grabbed the ugliest spiral notebook I had lying around, coffee stains, torn cover, bent pages. And I just started writing every single thought swirling in my head. No order, no categories, no judgment. Just a raw brain dump. At first, it was messy to the point of embarrassing. I wrote down grocery lists next to half-baked marketing ideas. I doodled next to business calculations. My perfectionist side hated it. For 2 weeks, I resisted, telling myself, this can't be productivity. This is chaos. But slowly, the magic appeared, not in the pages, but in my mind. One night, after a 15-minute dump session, I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. My brain had stopped buzzing. And the next morning, I realized something even bigger. I could scan the messy pages and spot the 3 ideas actually worth acting on. That ugly notebook became my filter. Did I act on everything I wrote? Not even close. Maybe 5%. But that was the point. The dump cleared the fog so the real priorities could shine. Productivity wasn't about holding more in my head, it was about letting go of what didn't matter. At Profit with A, we classify this as a release habit. The notebook doesn't need to be pretty, it just needs to catch the mental clutter so your brain can finally work. Once the fog cleared, I had another strange problem: too much sitting still. That's when the third weird habit entered the files. File Profit 503, Walking Meetings with Myself. It was late 2020. Work from home had blurred every line in my life. I'd wake up, sit at my desk, and before I knew it, 12 hours had passed. My body was stiff, my energy was gone, and my ideas felt recycled. I realized I wasn't thinking anymore, I was just reacting. That's when I decided to try something odd: holding walking meetings with myself. I blocked off 30 minutes on my calendar, wrote the words meeting, walk, and walked out the door with nothing but my phone's voice recorder. The goal was simple: to talk through problems out loud as if I were presenting them to a team. At first, it felt silly. Neighbors probably thought I was ranting to myself on the street. I stumbled over my words. I caught myself complaining more than solving. But after a week, the tone shifted. Instead of looping the same thoughts, I began uncovering solutions. Walking freed my mind from the desk, and speaking out loud forced clarity I couldn't reach by typing. One afternoon, during a walk, I solved a pricing problem for a client project that had stalled for weeks. I played the recording back, wrote the action steps down, and within 2 days had closed the deal. That one client alone paid me more than a month's rent. The habit stuck. Anytime I felt stuck at the desk, I scheduled a walking meeting. Not every walk led to breakthroughs, but enough did that the return was undeniable. My income didn't grow because I worked harder, it grew because I finally thought clearer. At Profit with A, we classify this as a clarity habit. Motion creates thought, and thought creates solutions. Productivity isn't always at the desk, it sometimes starts on the sidewalk. But clarity is useless without energy. And in those days, my energy was crashing hard by mid-afternoon. That's when the fourth weird habit came into play. File Profit 504, the 20-minute afternoon nap. By the start of 2021, my routine was in overdrive. I had freelance projects, a growing side hustle, and a mountain of unfinished ideas. My mornings were strong, but by 2 p.m., I was running on fumes. Coffee only bought me another hour before the crash. That's when I remembered something I'd read about top executives and athletes: the power nap. I set a timer on my phone for 20 minutes, lay down on the couch in my tiny apartment, and told myself, this isn't sleeping, it's recharging. No blackout curtains, no fancy setup. Just 20 minutes. At first, I overdid it. 20 minutes turned into 90. I'd wake up groggy, disoriented, and more stressed than before. Friends joked that I was just lazy napping. But after trial and error, I found the sweet spot: eyes closed, headphones with white noise, and an alarm set for exactly 20 minutes. The first time it worked, I woke up at 2:25 p.m. and went back to my desk with the kind of focus I hadn't felt since morning. That afternoon, I powered through a backlog of proposals that landed me 3 new clients by the weekend. The nap didn't steal time, it gave me back hours I would have wasted sluggish and distracted. Since then, the 20-minute nap has become non-negotiable. I protect it like a meeting. It doesn't always feel glamorous, but the compounding effect is real: more focus, sharper decision-making, and better results. At Profit with A, we classify this as a recharge habit. Productivity isn't about grinding until empty, it's about learning when to unplug and come back sharper. Clear goals, clear mind, movement, and rest. But there was still one final habit, maybe the strangest of all, the one that tied everything together and pushed my income higher than I thought possible. File Profit 505, dressing up to work from home. It was mid-2021. By now, I had systems in place, the backward to-do lists, brain dumps, walking meetings, and the power nap. Productivity was climbing, income was finally steady. But there was a quiet problem I couldn't shake. Working from home had turned me into a ghost in sweatpants. Entire days blurred together. My work felt flat. That's when I stumbled into what felt like the strangest habit of all, dressing up, even though nobody was watching. One morning, instead of rolling out of bed and sitting down in the same hoodie, I put on a crisp button-up shirt, jeans, and shoes. Not slippers, actual shoes. No one else was around. I wasn't going to meetings. But something about the act of suiting up made the day feel different. At first, it felt unnecessary, like I was pretending. I laughed at myself making coffee in full work clothes with nowhere to go. But I kept testing it. On the days I dressed up, my posture was better. I checked my phone less. I even caught myself speaking more confidently on client calls. On the days I didn't, I dragged through tasks like a half-asleep intern. The real breakthrough came during a high-stakes Zoom meeting with a new client. I dressed exactly as if I were pitching in person, shirt ironed, hair neat, even shoes polished. The call went flawlessly. I felt sharp, professional, in command. The client signed a contract worth nearly double what I expected. And here's the kicker, they never even saw my shoes. But I knew they were on. That's when I realized the habit wasn't about appearance, it was about identity. Dressing up flipped the mental switch from, I'm at home messing around, to, I'm at work, doing business. It created a boundary my brain desperately needed. At Profit with A, we classify this as an identity habit. The clothes weren't for others, they were for me. They told my brain, it's time to perform, not coast. Together, these 5 weird habits formed the backbone of my most productive and profitable seasons. None of them were flashy. None required new tools or apps. But each one flipped a switch I didn't know existed. And when combined, they changed everything. These files tell a simple truth: productivity, and the income that follows, isn't built on hacks, apps, or some secret formula. It's built on habits. Small, strange, even uncomfortable shifts that change how you think, how you work, and how you show up. Writing my to-do list backwards taught me to let outcomes guide the day. Brain dumping into ugly notebooks cleared the fog and freed my mind. Walking meetings gave me clarity when the desk held me hostage. A 20-minute nap recharged my focus when caffeine failed. And dressing up to work from home reminded me that identity shapes performance. None of these habits were flashy. None promised instant millions. But each one doubled something more valuable than money: my control over time, energy, and focus. And when those multiplied, income followed. These files show the same truth: progress isn't luck, it's consistency, trial and error, and the courage to experiment with what feels strange. Because the weirdest habits often become the strongest levers. Productivity doesn't happen overnight, but when it compounds, it feels like overnight change. So don't wait for the perfect system, the perfect software, or the perfect conditions. Start where you are, with what you have. The first small habit, no matter how odd, might just be the proof that the door is open. If you've tested your own weird productivity habit, drop it in the comments. I may feature it in a future profit log. And if you found value here, subscribe to Profit with A, hit the notification bell, and don't miss the next file we open. The archive is growing, and you'll want to be here when the next one unlocks. This has been another productive one from Profit with A. Until next time, keep hustling.